All right, to get started today, I'll be presenting about SASA's research team. Um, Thank you, An and Megan. Megan, I think you can turn your camera off for a little bit, and I'll share my screen. Today, I'm standing in for Dr. Valeria Zubieta-Lugo, who is our SASA's research team leader, because she's unable to attend today. Let me get started. I think that we're all aware that in the past 20 years, there's been a slow but steady decline in the humanities. And as scholars of the ancient world, we know that this phenomenon has been unfortunately more acute in our fields. This discussion about the declining health of ancient studies has been particularly fueled by our experiences with the diminishing number of students, funding, and lack of institutional support, as well as by the struggles to maintain course offerings, and sometimes even departments. However, this sense of the decline in ancient studies that we share is only supported by anecdotal evidence that we come across in our work lives. It's very different to believe something is true than to prove that it is. So what is actually happening? Why is this happening? What has been done to forestall these developments? And what could be done in the future to improve these efforts? These are questions that SASA's research team works to answer. Over the last 2 years, we have been working on the initial stages of our Sociology of Ancient Studies research program. This program is divided into the following major projects: an educational sociology research project, documenting the health and engagement with ancient studies by the educational system in the United States, including K-12 schools and institutions of higher education. Number 2 is a marketing research project, investigating public knowledge, interest, and conceptions of ancient studies, and how ancient studies is marketed by departments and institutions, how they talk about it, and how they try to attract the public to ancient studies, as well as developing tools for effective engagement with prospective students and families. The third one is a suite of research projects that examine and propose solutions to the internal and external challenges of ancient studies, such as the lack of diversity, outdated education programming, and the disconnect with non-academic realities. Before continuing to give you a taste of our preliminary research, it's important to first define what we mean by ancient studies. The concept of ancient studies, as encompassing a variety of academic disciplines, is not yet widespread and accepted. SASA includes the disciplines you can see in this slide within ancient studies. As is apparent in this list, ancient studies includes some disciplines that study all time periods. Nonetheless, the concept of a deeper past exists in all disciplines of historical study. This deeper past is what we mean to encompass by the term ancient, taking a global perspective on deeper human history and culture. Similar study of the deeper past is applicable within Indigenous studies as well, we believe, which is why we include those fields, even though their deeper histories may not be separated within educational departmental structures, and even though Indigenous communities instantiate living cultures that stem from that deeper past. The potential gains in accepting this moniker and associating these fields with one another is appreciable. The collaboration of our fields will allow for the creation of a larger place for those fields within the humanities, helping to prevent their downsizing and rather creating a unified advocacy platform within the humanities. In essence, forming an alliance of ancient studies fields puts us ahead of this downward trend and enables us to reposition ourselves as newly vital, flourishing fields. In the rest of this presentation, I will present our initial partial findings of research on documenting how engaged institutions and students are with ancient studies. We modeled this research on the Humanities Indicators Project of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. we identified 5 categories of indicators to study, which are quantitative metrics related to academic participation in ancient studies. These are degree completion, language course enrollment, demographics, funding, and accessibility. To date, we have completed the analysis of the first 2 and have been working on the others. The first 2, particularly in the context of higher education within the United States. By examining the indicators degree completion and language course enrollment, we sought to find answers to various questions regarding the health of ancient studies, including how many degrees and programs of ancient studies are actually offered, what type of ancient studies degrees are offered, what type of institutions offer ancient studies degrees or programs, how has the demand for ancient studies degrees changed over time, and how broad-based is the interest in ancient studies course offerings. In studying the degree completion indicator, we measured the number of students who have completed a degree in any ancient studies field at the levels of associate's, bachelor's, master's, or PhD degrees. This is one of the most fundamental indicators of the state of the field. For this category, we collected data from the National Science Foundation's online data system, which gathers information from the US Department of Education, the Institute of Education Sciences, the National Center for Education Statistics, and Integrated Post-Secondary Data System, as well as data from the Humanities Indicators Project of the American Academy of Arts and Science. These data cover the years between 1997 to 2018, and they are updated every 2 to 3 years. 27,009 bachelor's degrees in disciplines of ancient studies were conferred in 2018 in the United States. The numbers might seem high, but it marks the 6th consecutive year of decline and a significant reduction from the 2012 apex by 33%, a difference of almost 13,000 fewer awarded degrees. It is also the lowest number since the beginning of the records, which dates back to 1997. This is in contrast with the trend observed before 2013. In fact, from 2002 to 2012, there's been a steady growth, which according to the findings of the Humanities Indicators Project, is in line with almost every discipline in the humanities. We chose to show 2 potential trend lines for the future of the bachelor degrees in ancient studies. The green line shows a very optimistic increase by 2030, while the prediction of the red line confirms the reality that we've been experiencing in the past 3 years. Nevertheless, the truth is that the next few years will probably see a further decrease in the number of students, and this without taking into consideration the catastrophic potential impact that the pandemic may have brought to our fields. However, through segmenting types of schools, we expect that this trend will level off well above 0. The indicator of language course enrollment provides information about the number and demographics of students who enroll in language courses. This data is segmented into underclassmen, upperclassmen, and graduate students. We chose to investigate this indicator because it provides a portrait of interest in ancient studies through the progress of students' educational careers along the way while they study. Since introductory language courses are commonly taught to freshmen and sophomores, we have a view of interest at the beginning of students' studies in ancient studies. We can then trace the continued interest in ancient studies by students taking minors and majors as they take on higher level language courses, which we expect to better parallel the degree completion data. For this indicator, we gathered information from the Language Enrollment Database of the Modern Language Association, the MLA, which covers the years 1958 through 2016. The MLA 2019 report on language course enrollment in higher education revealed a continued drop in overall language enrollment in all languages since 2006, apart from the major world languages such as Korean, Chinese, and Japanese, which enjoyed modest gains. The vast majority of languages that are taught in American universities have lost students as universities drop language requirements or allow students to place out of them with AP credits. The general decline in enrollment is evidenced in ancient languages as well. The most recent MLA survey, going back to 2006, shows that in the 10-year period between 2006 and 2016, language enrollment among the major ancient languages, including Latin, Ancient Greek, and Aramaic and Hebrew, dropped significantly, especially at the introductory level, whereas less studied languages lack enough data to actually show accurate trends. As you can see, this data parallels what's been going on in recent years, in the last 8 years, in degree completions. In sum, our research has evidentiated the downward trend in ancient studies by the two indicators that we have studied thus far. The downward trend already began in the early 2000s, but was actually interrupted by the economic recession in 2008, which led to higher collegiate enrollment across all fields of study, as more people went to school rather than trying to search for jobs, which were not as available. Consequently, the years 2008 through 2013 show a rise. However, from 2013 and on, the downward trend in ancient studies continues. Our statistically based future projections show the continuation of the downward trend. We are currently working on using more sophisticated predictive curve fitting methods to get a better sense of what the future might hold. However, we do expect there to be two mitigating factors that will continue to prevent the complete collapse of ancient studies fields. These are the expected continued participation in ancient studies by both religious schools and by elite schools. As our research continues, we will investigate the three other indicators and expand to a worldwide perspective. We will construct a database for ongoing monitoring of the health of ancient studies, which will be publicly available, so other researchers can use our data. Beyond just describing the state of ancient studies, we are also working on finding solutions to this problem. This will take the form of research on the current ways in which ancient studies and the humanities are promoted or marketed, and our creation of a marketing package, which we will disseminate to university departments and ancient studies organizations for their use. We are also applying to foundations for financial support for this project, so we can continue doing this good work. In addition, to support our research program and help guide its development, we recently created an advisory board consisting of a group of excellent scholars and leaders in the humanities. These include, beginning from the top left and proceeding counterclockwise, Joy Connolly, President of American Council of Learned Societies, Charles E. Jones, Tombros Librarian of Classics and Humanities at Penn State University, James Cork Webster, Reader in Classics, History and Liberal Arts at King's College London, Stephen Hunt, Lecturer and Senior Teaching Associate for PGCE Classics at Cambridge University, Robert Townsend, Program Director for Humanities, Arts and Culture at the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, John Kutzko, Executive Director of the Society of Biblical Literature, and Young Kim, Associate Professor of the Department of Classics and Mediterranean Studies and the Department of History at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Thank you all for listening, and I wonder if we might have some time for questions, but I'm not so sure.
I think we have 1 minute if anyone has questions. We have a couple of comments rather than questions in the tradition of academic conferences everywhere. Voices of Ancient Egypt says that one thing is considered with these drop-in numbers is that college-age populations have actually gone down. Gen Z is much smaller than the millennial generation, so obviously that's going to have an impact on the enrollments that we see. And New Necro is saying, I wonder how the pandemic might have affected these trends. It feels unexpected how the recession has helped enrollment.
Right, that's actually an interesting factor that might go forward, happen again, since the 2008 recession caused an increase in enrollment. Potentially the pandemic recession session might do this a similar bump, but it's really unclear. And these the data for these indicators lags by 2, 3, 4 years, depending on how quickly the organizations that collect this information produce it and put it together and put it out to the public. But we do expect to continue to update our data going forward in the future.
We don't seem to have any more specific questions, so I'm going to pass over to Lauren and Cassandra, who are going to speak to us on live events that they do, because they are both awesome and run all of SASA's live events. So Lauren and Cassandra, you please take it away.